Welcome. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to Saving the World One Tire at a Time. This event is hosted by Center for Inquiry Canada, your community for science and secularism. My name is Shauna Watson. I'm Vice President of Center for Inquiry Canada, and I'll be your host for this talk. CFIC is Canada's only national nonprofit with the mission of promoting and educating the public on critical thinking, science, and secularism. We work to equip people to make decisions based on evidence, rational thinking, and compassion. To this end, we hold events like this to provide an opportunity for you to engage with the subject matter experts on a variety of topics. In these days, continuing physical distancing, all of CFIC's events and activities are provided online, available from coast to coast to coast. We rely entirely on donations and memberships to allow us to bring you events like this. Please visit our website, centerforinquiry.ca, with the Canadian spelling CENTRE, or email info@centerforinquiry.ca for more information about how to become a member or make a donation. We will be recording this talk for publication on CFIC's YouTube channel, and that will include the Q&A session. If you don't want your name or image to appear in the recording, please turn off your camera and/or change your screen name. To minimize background noise, we've muted everybody's microphone. If you have problems with the audio or video during the presentation, I suggest you turn off your video. After the discussion, there will be an opportunity to ask questions, which we'll do by text using the Zoom chat window. Now I'd like to introduce you to our guest speaker. Matt has a degree in sustainability and an MA in education. Raised in Lufkin, Texas, he first went to Guatemala as a Peace Corps volunteer in 2002. At the end of his service, his in-country counterpart, the director of a local NGO, requested his help in transforming a 5-acre piece of land into a community park. In 2004, Matt filed the nonprofit application to start LWH, and in February 2005, Park Chimaya was underway, and Matt was settled in for the long haul. So, go ahead, Matt.
Okie doke. Well, thank you for the introduction, and thank you to everybody for coming. I'm the executive director and founder of Long Way Home. Thanks to CFIC for the invitation, and although I am the person presenting today, everything that you're going to see was done by thousands of people from all over the world. And I think we're going to, without saying much more, jump right into it. So if you would please play the first video, I can give you an idea of what we're going to talk about today. So what you're going to see is our school campus. From 2009 to the present, we've been working on this campus. The imagery of our 3D video isn't totally finished, but I think it's close enough for now. And I'm going to let the imagery speak for itself as soon as it starts playing, which is, imagine, happening now. What you're going to see is that we have turned 15,000 tires, countless glass bottles, plastic bottles, and eco bricks, and we've turned them into an entire school campus. And so what do I mean by we? Who is we? We are, as I mentioned, thousands of people from all over the world. Our core group is a group of Guatemalans that are locals, and as you're going to see in the next video, they've done the vast majority of the work and turned into quite the skill builders in the process. We first expected this campus to be, it was going to take 3 or 4 years, which basically puts my budgeting off and projections off by 8 or 9 years, as we are still working on this. And I will let the video speak for itself for a moment. Currently, we have 120 students between teachers and administrators. There's 27. We've had as many as 25, 30 builders working on this at one time. Now our building crew is at 7. Most of them are at the foreman level and really lead the team on a regular basis. And now moving into the next video, what you'll see, that was kind of an overview of the campus, give you an idea of how expansive it is, what we've done. The next building is a better example of the actual work on one building, and you'll get a chance to see who did the work and, you know, slightly more detail. So this is Romeo. Romeo lives in the neighborhood. That's the view to the south. This is the building going up, but Romeo lives in the neighborhood. He's been working with us since 2009. Now he's one of our principal foremen, and as you're going to see him in a lot of these pictures, he's the guy that really ran the show on putting this actual building together. And so we had mentioned that one tire at a time. Well, what you're seeing is a whole lot of tires at a time. As I mentioned before, we've used close to 15,000 tires in the process of building this campus. And what I really like about this video is you get to see the combination of materials, where at times people will think that green building is all trash. Well, what we do is use rebar and concrete and some conventional materials to hold all of the trash together. As you can see, we build columns. The columns are built out of concrete. However, around the columns and in the trenches, what you're going to see are how we start laying tires to do the foundation for a building. As you can see, we've gone at least 2 meters below level. And so we put gravel in the first tires, and that serves as a foundation, as you're seeing, and as drainage for the foundation. Water would come up through the gravel and go back down, and then we go up and use tires from there. So we go from gravel tires to tires filled with dirt, and that is connected to that column, which see now in the video didn't transition very well. And so after we've done some columns and some tires, then what you're seeing is the formwork connected to the tires. Then we put earth bags around the windows so that we can form the arch, so that we remove the window forms, that the arch remains. Once again, you're seeing who's doing the vast majority of this work. And so while this is actually happening, our students started, this building was going up in 2015 and 2016. We started classes in 2012. So our students are participating in the actual, or going to school and walking by these buildings as they're being done, which has been the case for most of the buildings. So although the students aren't out there every day building the buildings, they are seeing every day people from their town building these buildings and seeing the buildings going up. As you can tell, we've used quite a few tires. There you see the bond beam. And the bond beam goes over the tires to level everything out. And from there, we start connecting rebar, as you can see over the top of that column, to make the vigas. And this is in preparation for pouring a concrete pad on top of this, because we put yet another building on top of this building. So, you know, people would often ask, in what way does our nonprofit involve the locals in the work that we do? And the answer, which I think is evident by this video, is that we don't really have to try really hard. is what is evident in this video is we're fully dependent on the locals' ability to collect resources and do the construction, as they know everybody within the town, and they're the ones guiding us, and they're the ones making it possible for us to get all the 2x4s. And but together, we do have one person that's doing most of the design, but we only design to a certain point, because part of this is getting into the mix and then having people throw ideas so that we can put this together in the best way. And so we thrive off of the opportunity for people to make suggestions and improve our buildings. And this comes from the locals. This comes from people from all over the world, as we're visited by engineers and artists and architects and quite a variety of people. And so I think we are also seeing a theme that is emerging as a lot of work. And something that's worth pointing out is that it's where we have found common ground. And when we're on our job sites and we're out there coming up with ideas and doing all the work together, what we're seeing is that people find a lot of common ground. They sort of put the maybe any prejudice to the side and really focus on what's going on. And for some strange reason, it's really, really fun to spend most of the day with a sledgehammer in your hand and putting dirt in a tire and pouring concrete for the second roof. And yeah, you can see there's quite a group of people working together. And so this video has a companion to it in which we take every single one of the photographs throughout the course of the building and string it together to make a 35-minute video. So it's not enough to tell people exactly how to do this construction. However, it is enough to get an idea of what it takes to do it. And we've also been collecting the materials list so that if people would like to know what it takes to do these buildings, we can provide the materials list, which that person could then take to a hardware store and find out an approximate materials cost. So since we're also doing quite a bit of research, because these are the questions as we green build that most people ask: how much does it cost? Well, a building like this, after we do the work and provide the materials list, would potentially provide people with that answer, which is hard to do other than if you were to design it and then create a budget and then tell somebody how much it costs, which some people don't want to go that far before they find out how much it costs to build this. So we've done a lot of the research to find out. Sure does seem like everybody's having a good time as we put all of this completely random building together. It's pretty hard to believe that that building, as I watched this video, started off with nothing more than digging out the entire foundation. And at this point, we're looking at columns, a poured concrete roof, getting ready for the exterior finishes. And so what you're seeing there is people making cob. Cob is a mixture of subsoil and potentially clay and straw and water and some sand, depending on the actual soil itself. And then we add it to the wall. And that builds out, as you can tell, around the tires. And then that's how we're able to take it and form it into what becomes art on the outside of all of our buildings, which you will see more of. We go into so much detail with the art because it's a school, and we've seen it just over and over again where the kids are paying a lot of attention. to all the art on the walls. Not the easiest thing to budget for, but this is the building that's going on top. The inside, what it looks like when it's finished. This is the teacher's lounge. Seeing the secretary's office. This is walking in through the front door. These are the principal and the secretary working. And the storage room. And this building is now in full operation, and we're working on the building on top. And so now we can move on to the PowerPoint. And so that was one of our buildings up close, and got an idea with the 3D video of what the overview of the campus looks like. Now we get to go into some more detail of the buildings that we actually did on the campus. And so I'd just like to start off with this quote, what John Dewey envisioned when he wrote of democracy. Democracy is part of what we're doing, but it's a community of thoughtful experimentalists, people working together, trying things out, evaluating and sorting through the possibilities. Let me know if that looks familiar in the Q&A, if we seem like we're sorting through the possibilities. Next slide, please. That is Gus and I at Goddard, the president of CFIC. I just did that to embarrass him. This is where our project is located, and you can see on the right where our school is located in relationship to the little town of San Juan Comalapa, 35,000 people. Next slide. This is the piece of property that we bought whenever there were no buildings, south face, and about 2 acres. So this is the 3D model, and this gives you an idea, a little from a drone's perspective, what the campus might look like when connected. You'll go to the next slide. Gives you an idea of some of the interior of the campus. We have retaining walls that we built using tires to divide the campus up and create a lot of green spaces as well. Next. And so what you have here is whenever we were building the campus, it wasn't as much, let's purely just build a school campus. We were also looking for infrastructure development ideas and options to emerge from building these. So we know that people need homes, and we know that people need dry compost latrines and water tanks. And so what you see on our campus is a whole bunch of water tanks and latrines and ideas that you will later see how we've moved those ideas and implemented them in the local community. That is the view from nearby, from the campus. So what did we do? We started digging. This is us digging out the side of the hill after we bought the land. Wondering sometimes if there are enough tires for us to do this. It sure seems possible. We went and collected tires on a flatbed truck, and that is how we gather tires. We go from small tire shop to tire shop and pick them up 4 or 5 at a time. So we're cleaning up the streets. This is what it looks like to put a sledgehammer in dirt in one of those tires. So what it looks like as we're going up with a building that's not like the admin building pushed into the side of the mountain, freestanding walls. This is what it looks like when the classrooms are done, and those are pre-kindergarten students in one of the buildings on the second floor of that building. And you can see that building finished after it was a couple of years. From one more angle. Another thing that we do is retaining walls. There's a lot of landslides in Guatemala and a lot of uneven land because we're up in the mountains. And so here comes our retaining walls. Whenever we bought the property, it was at quite a slope, and this retaining wall supported that slope. And so what you're seeing here is what we did on top of that retaining wall. We started practicing with earth bags, and which is a polyurethane bag filled with dirt. So we don't all. I just like this image because of the three amigos, because we do some sewing too. And so whenever we've sewn the bags and we want to make an arch, that's what that looks like. Eventually that window form will come out. And we go up and up and up on the top of the other retaining wall and to the south of the northern retaining wall. And that is what that building looks like when it has been plastered. 2 stories, classrooms on the bottom, teachers' offices on the top, glass bottle domes, so light shining through. From a distance. That is normally what people say whenever they show up. Just stand and stare. And as I mentioned, we do some art, and so we built out outside of the earth bags all of the deer and birds and owls and such. So yeah, moving on to the menu of development options, we're now into cisterns. I wanted to see if we can build large cisterns using tires. It's an up-close version of the tires. So you have to put rebar around the tires and pour concrete. You can see how intricate that potentially is. That's what's sitting on top, our library, and we put glass bottles in the ceiling of the library, which provides us quite a bit of light, and as you can imagine, our students really enjoy that. That's what the outside of the library looks like, and young lady at the bottom is standing right in front of that cistern. And so we also use eco bricks, which are plastic bottles filled with trash in addition to the tire. So 1 eco brick at a time. We use a mixture of cob, which is what I mentioned before, the soil, and then layer the cob between the eco bricks and go ahead. That is the building that you're going to see in the next slide. Go ahead. That's that building. So all the plastic bottles, that's the second story of that building. The first story was done using earth bags and a mixture of tires. It's the inside of one of our classrooms, lots of light because of the glass bottles. We're also now into using bamboo to build trusses to experiment with new kinds of roofs. This is our cafeteria. It's our campus from a distance. We have reshaped the landscape. Hopefully our buildings match the landscape. So in addition to, once we got settled with our campus, people liked what we were doing, and we've now taken our show on the road. We were invited to Colombia. That's quite a view from that job site. And so our Guatemalan foreman came to Colombia to teach the local Colombians how to build with tires. And after we've left that project, those people are still, they formed a company and are building out of tires. That's the dome sitting on top of those tires. Glass bottles, as you would imagine. This was the foundation for the next house that we were building on that property. That is the glass bottle dome in Colombia that we built for the bathroom. We've been to Boston and built this garage in Georgetown. Glass bottles at the peak. The base was made with tires. We did this one in Comalapa. That's quite the retaining wall that we made, and we're building a fence around a piece of property. We were invited to South Africa, just really like that picture. We built a culture hub. What I really like about this picture is the Guatemalans, who are our foremen, went to South Africa to train the locals there, and couldn't really speak the same language very well, if at all. But were able to communicate really well because the language of working with trash applied in South Africa better than we thought. That is where I got to live while doing the South Africa project. That is Cape Town. So after we did the Culture Hub, we were then invited into Delft. Delft is a township in Cape Town, and that was the building crew. We were building a school. So this was our raw materials. Once again, one tire at a time. If anybody's wondering if I ever get into the fray, yeah, my preference is to actually work with tires over a lot of the administrative work that I do. These are the tires going up on that school. So what a tire wall looks like, once again, as we've taken art to the next level, and that is inside the pre-kindergarten room at that school. Here's a few pictures of our students. This is back to Comalapa and our students. Can you imagine sitting in a room? It's the entire campus. I think that was 2015 or 16. The entire group of builders, teachers, students, everybody. This is our first graduating class from our high school. And you'll get to see the kind of projects that they worked on before they graduated. But that was a quiet, very big moment for us to have started this in 2009 and actually have a graduating class. And I wasn't really into flags until I saw one about our school, and out of this picture because I really like our flag. One of our outdoor classrooms. With the way that everybody's dressed, it is like working in a rainbow. This is one of our parents. This is our Parents Association. This is one of our meetings. Parent Teacher Association. This is how well I sleep after doing a lot of that work, and the animals don't seem to mind joining me. And yeah, that's boots on. So I waited to share our mission. I think it makes more sense. Yes, we are laser focused on active participation in democracy. And you can see our attempt at how we're attempting just to do that. And moving on into the next video. So the next video is one of my favorites because, as I mentioned previously, our students really, as they've been active at our school while the construction has been happening. And so they've been watching everything go up. And so they have an idea about how all this actually works. You can play the video, I think. And yeah, play the video with all the sound, please. Please play the sound on this. Anyways, I can give you a lead. This is a summary video of our student projects.
Just interrupting for a second. Are you getting the sound, or are you not getting the sound?
I wasn't until now.
Okay, you are getting sound now and it's all good?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Would you play the other video first?
Sorry, yeah, let me just, sorry about this.
Okay.
Oh, I have the same video twice. Okay, give me 1 second.
And,
you want the cistern video, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry about
that. And so, as I was mentioning before, our students were on campus while most of the buildings were happening. And so they've seen this go up. And what we figured out is that we could potentially integrate please play the video. And yeah, we'll start the audio at 1 minute. And so what we saw is that we could integrate the construction of our buildings into the classroom to combine some theory and practice. And what we found out was that our students really, really enjoy that combination of theory and practice, not exactly rocket science. And so what we did was the students went to one of the villages nearby. There are 16 villages nearby that are classified as a higher level of poverty, and they did surveys during their social studies class. And the survey said, hey, there are X amount of people that need stoves and water tanks and retaining walls. And so what we got together with were a corporate service group who bought all the materials, and then our students and teachers and builders teamed up with the corporate service group, and we went out to this village and installed 36 stoves and 21 cisterns. So please start the audio.
Estuvimos construyendo una estufa mejorada, se beneficiaron a 20 familias y este año igual. Next on the list are compost latrines, after that retaining walls, then water tanks, and then we're going to be building houses. All this is done primarily with our students, so that we could do it because we're professional builders. Our students and teachers are leading the charge on this because they're receiving the biggest effects. get to see some of the glass bottles and tires, and in a couple of weeks, this will be a totally functioning house. And hopefully that's the end of this soundbite, because I can't remember what else is there.
Uno de mis planes es poder estudiar agronomía porque ayuda a la naturaleza. Estos proyectos me han ayudado mucho porque me he dado cuenta que en muchos lugares realmente necesitan trabajos como este. La verdad es una experiencia muy bonita porque aprendemos muchas cosas que no sabemos. Tal vez muchos piensan que este trabajo solo es para hombres, pero igual nosotros como mujeres lo podemos aprender.
Yo creo que la lección que tenemos nosotros para los estudiantes de aquí es que va a sino que ellos mismos emprendan sus propios proyectos. Proyectos siempre basados en la ecología, en la construcción verde, que puedan ser beneficiosos para las comunidades necesitadas.
And so the next video, what you're going to see is our students, in addition to building, we had so much success with building the 36 stoves and the 21 cisterns. Now students from the 7th grade to the 11th grade are building out in the villages and using the curriculum to do it. And this video gives us an idea of what they're doing. So we're going to let them tell the story.
Estamos visitando la aldea de Chiquín Sanaí, en donde la organización de Low Home hemos apoyado a esta comunidad.
Nosotros utilizamos materiales reciclables, utilizamos llantas de carros que ya están dañadas, también utilizamos botellas de vidrio como pueden ver. Aquí está nuestro proyecto realizado. Este es una letrina bonera, es una taza especial que al utilizar el sanitario no se necesita agua. En este caso utilizamos ceniza, arena o cal. Nunca había pensado qué podríamos hacer con la basura y sí se siente la diferencia al estar contribuyendo con el medio ambiente, porque yo sinceramente no tenía ni idea de estos proyectos hasta que fui a estudiar el Centro Educativo Técnico Chichot. Este caso es un tinaco subterráneo. Este tinaco ayuda a las familias para poder almacenar agua. Tiene capacidad de 5 toneles, 1100 litros. Y esto ayuda a las personas para que el agua obtengan para el uso diario.
En esta ocasión utilizamos 300 llantas que fueron recuperadas o traídas de los barrancos o los tiraderos clandestinos de basura. Dentro de las llantas hay basura y tierra. La función en sí del muro de retención es para los lugares con alto riesgo de derrumbes. Es de gran beneficio hacia nosotros y hacia la naturaleza también, ya que esto no produce ningún mal a la naturaleza. Y me siento afortunado al estar compartiendo y aprendiendo de los usos que se le pueden dar a las basuras. La estufa mejorada, la función principal es utilizar menos leña. Esta tiene una estructura un poco diferente a las tradicionales. Las columnas sostienen la estufa, están hechas a base de llantas. Son llantas pequeñas, compactadas con tierra y basura que tiene adentro de relleno. El fuego se concentra en todos los espacios. Lo que hacemos es recuperar toda la basura que es base de nuestras construcciones y de nuestra vida, ya que la basura nos ha ayudado a construir este tipo de estufas y otras construcciones también.
Y con el apoyo del Centro Educativo Técnico Chichot,
Lowenhon.
Y la Escuela de Héroes,
que se vio la necesidad en las comunidades.
Siempre para ayudar a la comunidad, para el medio ambiente siempre se tratan nuestros proyectos.
Okay. Imagine that may have raised a couple of questions, and I would like to start the Q&A and see what kind of questions we have.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions already been posed in the chat, and if people have more questions to ask, please put them into the chat. And so the first question is from Gus. How do these buildings hold up in earthquakes and hurricanes?
Well, Guatemala has lots of earthquakes and lots of hurricanes. And what we've seen is that the tires absorb the movement of the earthquake, where you would have a typical foundation where the concrete in the foundation is connected to the walls. And then that breaks that connection. Our tires absorb the movement and we don't get a lot of breakage.
Thank you. Next question from Martin Zielinski. Do tires and plastic bottles change their properties over many years, and does this compromise the structural integrity?
That is the exact point of using the tires more than we use anything else, is that they don't. By the time we pulled them out of the ground, they're potentially in a landfill, and then we've put them in a wall and then plastered them, and they're also packed tight with dirt. There aren't a lot of elements remaining for them to deteriorate. And so, as far as we can tell, they'll be there a really long time.
Thanks. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Are there any other questions? There's some question about, somebody earlier made a comment about the natural light. So if you could talk a little more about the bottles and the light. And I noticed in one of the buildings, there was an array of brown bottles and green bottles as well as the clear bottles. So if you want to speak to that a bit.
Sure. What we're trying to do partially is there's no trash system in Guatemala. So part of what we're trying to do is remove waste from the trash stream. And so bottles are some of that waste. And bottles we put in the ceilings, so just like skylights. And because bottles have multiple colors, you can add skylights with multiple colors to the classrooms, lightening of the class and just making it a more fun, beautiful environment. The students respond really well, and everybody seems to like the glass bottles and the roof idea.
Thanks. Okay, let me just... Okay, there's a question, has a study been made about the susceptibility to fire? Because as we know, loose tires are a major fire hazard.
Sure. I don't know that we have not done a study about the susceptibility to fire, or our building's susceptibility to fires. We do know that there was a study done in South Africa with eco bricks and how much flame was required for those buildings, also once plastered and unplastered, to actually catch on fire. And so with one of our buildings, somebody would have to start a fire or apply a lot of gasoline to one of the buildings after removing all of the exterior cob and finishes in order for that building to catch on fire.
Thanks. Sort of a similar question along that line. Is there outgassing from the tires, and how does that affect the indoor air quality?
Right. Our understanding with the off-gassing is that all of the off-gassing happens while the tire is being used. And so as the tire spins and it warms up and it goes through all of those rotations, what we've read and the reason we even consider doing this is because we understand that's where the off-gassing happens.
A question about the process for what's the protocol for involving students? What kind of approval, what kind of insurance in case of injuries, health and safety, etc.?
And we, having, no other models to follow, we did start that process at step number 1, which is getting permission from the superintendent of schools in the department and then for the entire country. And the whole thing was overseen by the superintendents. Now, I am not aware that there is specifically insurance for students to do this, but there was a lot of oversight and few opportunities to really get hurt. I mean, I suppose you could get hurt with rebar, but for the most part, because of the oversight, the entire thing was safe. And we just followed the rule. We had to, submit reports well ahead of time. And because the superintendents had never seen a project like this suggested in the way that we were doing it, they wanted to go into more detail and they gave us more oversight. And then they saw that, as they participated, saw that the students were really enjoying it, found it fun to make it easier and safer and better and more possible for our students.
Thank you. Question about the cisterns. Is there a way that the cisterns could be used for generating hydro energy, for example, low voltage hydro for radios and cell phones, etc.?
I really like that kind of question because that really gets to a point that I sometimes forget to make is now that we've created the campus, what is remaining are a whole bunch of ideas as far as development work goes, right? So there's solar ovens that need exploration. There are new types of stoves, new types of retaining walls, cisterns. There's no ceiling really for what we're doing. All of it can be exposed to endless improvements. And so what we were trying to do when we started was just a few folks who were really into green building. We were trying to implement all of those ideas or implement those ideas here and there. What we're going to be able to do because of our school is introduce these concepts or a concept such as that one into the classroom and have our students explore the possibilities. Now, what they're going to, because we spent 9 or 10 years building the campus, it's not just the students that are launching into it. There's a coordination that happens between our builders that have been doing this for a decade, the people designing the buildings, the teachers, the parents. We're really all trying to throw in on such ideas together because there's so many of them. And then after we have answers, we're going to put it on our website and provide that information for other people to continue down that inquiry-based path.
Okay, thanks. A couple of questions about how the funding for the school works. So where does the funding come from for the school, and what, if any, is the cost for students to attend?
The funding has slowly evolved over time. We didn't ever get one major donor that said, here's the money for everything. What we've done is spread it out or diversified our portfolio, and we have 16 or 17 different green building related sources and non-green building related sources of income. So for example, we have people that donate on a regular basis. That forms a certain percentage of our income. Volunteers will come and pay us to learn to green build and have the Guatemala experience. We get some money from volunteers. We do construction projects like what you saw in South Africa and Colombia. Our green building team of professionals will go do the construction, and then that money goes back to the school. So we've you know, we've figured out ways that what we're learning at our school we can continuously build upon that, and then that can develop into greater sources of income for the school itself as we get better.
Thanks. And now we have a question. If you can expound a bit on the Deweyan process for this building. A couple people with education background and philosophy background are interested in more information about that.
Well, I appreciate that question as well. So the reason I know Gus, the president of CFIC, is because I went into school trying to answer a question. And my question was, okay, so we had just built all these green buildings. And then at the very beginning, we were just doing the normal state mandated curriculum. So there was this rote memorization teaching going on inside of the classroom of our green buildings, because that's all we really knew how to do and were allowed to do. So the reason that we went down the Dewey path is I went to Goddard, met Gus, and Gus introduced me to a variety of authors. I read most of them. What stood out about John Dewey that I had never considered was the umbrella of democracy for the entire concept. Previously, I personally, as I was exploring this concept, way more into blaming the government and being mad at people. Dewey brought this whole new concept to me which was that we're in this together. We actually really have to concentrate on people's talents and our opportunities. And so rather than taking it in a negative direction, Dewey was like, okay, take a look around you. These are the different possibilities. And so when trying to explore what education model are we going to adopt at our school, is it going to be Waldorf? Is it going to be Montessori? Because it's not going to be rote memorization. It didn't feel much like those specific models applied to the degree that we were hoping. What we saw with John Dewey was some actual potential for change. And when reading Dewey, it seemed like we were doing most of what he was suggesting anyways. We didn't really have to make any changes. And we learned that we could, practice democracy at a high level while harnessing talents and resources, and turn it into a habit that people really enjoy and get better because of that. And so that's why our focus is really democratic education and using green building as the methodology for giving people the opportunity to practice collaboration and budgets and everything that our students have to do to get together to be able to do one of these projects. And they really, really like it. And the parents and the teachers and everybody is super excited. Our students want to come to school so they can get ready for the next big project. And Dewey opened the door to that whole democratic concept. Dewey and Gus.
Thank you. Somewhat related question. You're obviously a leader in this endeavor, but you also are emphasizing the involvement and the agency of the local community. Can you please say a bit more about that?
Sure. So just to start, like, there was no formal concept of a nonprofit that was created upon going to Guatemala after I was in the Peace Corps. So I did Peace Corps, went back to the United States, started a nonprofit organization, and then went back to Guatemala. So we didn't have like a budget or a plan. It was a whim and it was immediate. And so when it was just me, and then I was working with the locals to do anything. And then another volunteer shows up, and then locals are helping us do everything. So they form the essential part of the entire organization, as far as we, like me showing up there, and then other people from North America showing up there, depend 100% on the locals for everything. There's no aspect that we could do without them. So.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions. If there's a question, if anybody asked a question and I missed it, if you'd like to post it quickly again in the chat, but otherwise, did you have anything else you'd like to add, Matt?
I would like to say again, thank you for the invitation and let everybody know that we're not accepting volunteers at this very moment because of the unsure COVID future in Guatemala, but it won't be long. And this opportunity to engage at this level with the locals on a topic that people who are super engaged by will be open again soon. And we're really looking forward to your contribution to our process of inquiry. That's what we're waiting for.
Thanks. So I'd like to say thank you again, Matt, for a very informative presentation. And also thanks to all the thoughtful questions that came from participants. Just a few closing remarks. I'd like to draw your attention to a major upcoming event that CFI Canada has. We have a conference coming on May 8th, and we are certainly looking for volunteers, and also we still have some openings for speaker suggestions. We're going to be having both a plenary track with some major speakers and also some workshop and sharing sessions as well. So just contact info@Center for Inquiry if you're interested in that. And as I mentioned at the beginning, CFI Canada is Canada's only national nonprofit for scientific inquiry and secular community. We hope that those of you who are not already members will consider purchasing a membership, and hope you consider joining us. Not only does your membership provide financial support to CFIC, it adds your voice to that of others who support science, critical thinking, and secularism. If concerns like climate change, blasphemy laws, education, curriculum, medical pseudoscience are important to you, please consider becoming a CFI member. I'd like to thank the CFIC volunteers who help with this and other events. And if you'd like to volunteer with CFIC, you can sign up on our website or send an email to volunteers@centerforinquiry.ca. We have plenty of interesting positions to choose from. Once more, I'd like to thank Matt for being our speaker. And since Zoom doesn't do well with audible clapping, I invite everyone to express their appreciation by using the clap icon that you can find by tapping or clicking on the reactions tab and then selecting more. Thanks, everyone. And until next time, take care.
Thank you.